This
Diane.
conference will now be recorded.
I'm an herbalist. I'm a member of the American Herbalist Guild and a president of the local chapter. I don't treat patients. I'm not a clinical herbalist. I'm more involved in education. People are turning to herbs at record numbers these days and don't necessarily how to use them safely and effectively. That has deeply concerned me. Really want to understand anything that impacts your health before you implement it, because if it can impact your health positively, it can impact your health negatively. Now, before I get started, I'm sending my email address to the chat. If you have any questions that I haven't been able to answer, you can email them to me. At certain points, there'll be more information that I'll say is available. If you're interested, email me for that information. I'll be able to send it out to you. Okay, again, you want to understand anything that can impact your health before you start making use of it. In the herbal world, there are many poisons and toxins that could be extremely useful if you use them in just the right way. And there are a lot of herbs, including some that are deemed safe and effective, that can harm you if you misuse it. This is pretty much true with anything. You can eat improperly, you can exercise improperly. You want to know what you're doing because your health is so critical. Herbalists don't necessarily deal with illness, by the way. We deal with people. We select the right herb for the right person for the right condition. What's right for somebody today may not be right for somebody that comes in to see an herbalist a month from then. If two people come in with the same symptoms, the same problems, the same condition, the same herbs may not be appropriate for both people. So you really want to have some idea of what you're talking about. I can send you, if you're interested, a list of websites and references that you can go to learn more about this. I suggest, making some use of it. You can, I like to factor herbalism with chess. I can give you a chessboard, and you having never heard of chess before in your life and know nothing about the rules, can take a look at this chessboard and start playing checkers or start making up your own rules. And you can pass around to other people who have received similar boards what your rules are, and you can say, this is how you play chess. Now, a chess master will come by and probably read you the riot act for that. But if you use herbs that way, without knowing what the rules are, without understanding the implications, you could get hurt. Now, I can teach you chess. I can teach you the moves in 10 minutes. I can teach you basic herbalism very quickly and easily. It will take a little bit more than 10 minutes. And you can go and see your next door neighbor who just learned how to play chess, and you can play chess at a beginner level. And you can take what you've learned about herbs and properly, safely, and effectively deal with your cough, boost your immune system a little bit, help you deal with the cold or flu. As you get more experienced playing chess or using herbs, you can expand your repertoire, expand how you use them. You may get to the point where you become a master chess player or an herbalist who's got the proper training to be able to treat people, or you may just want to be able to take care of your family and know when something is beyond yourself and you need to see an herbalist. But if you're going to use herbs, you want to take the time and make the effort to know something about how to use them, at the very least, how to figure out if a website is going to help you or if it's giving you somebody's idea of how to play chess having never read the rules. On that note, we're not going to be talking a lot about herbs until the very end. The immune system is a part of your body. There are a lot of things that you can do to boost it, to enhance it, to support it, without ever touching an herb. Herbs we use as a method of last resort when your proper care of your body isn't doing enough for you. It might surprise you to learn that herbalists look that way or think that way, but we see the body as an active, vibrant system. Our bodies are chemical factories. Every living thing is a chemical factory. Chemicals are constantly being built, modified, broken down, reused again, and all of that does the work of the body. All of that builds your cells. All of that produces energy. All of that uses energy. All of that creates the messenger chemicals that travel between your hormones, your neurotransmitters, your immune system. all of the work that keeps you alive, that makes your body function, is being done ultimately by chemicals. And this is a constant process. You're not a robot that somebody created and then let loose. That comes back every 6 months to a year to have some maintenance done, some repair work done, and then sent out again. You are a vibrant system, and every aspect of your body is constantly trying to maintain homeostasis, trying to maintain the organs function properly, the immune system functions properly. And how you live your life and the choices you make are going to impact how well that happens. So that's the first place to begin. Our bodies are made up of separate systems: circulatory, respiratory, digestive. We look at them separately because it's easier for us to learn them that way and to understand them that way. But they're very tightly integrated, and anything that happens in one part of the body is also going to happen or have an impact someplace else. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay, again, there are a lot of books, magazine articles, and websites devoted to boosting your immune system. This is good because it's very important, but they don't give you a whole lot of context. If you don't understand how the immune system works, you're taking somebody's word for something, and they could be one of these people who read somebody else's ideas to how to play chess without ever having read the rules. You want to know how the immune system works. So that's how we're going to start. The immune system doesn't protect us from everything. It has one job: boundaries. It's not going to protect you from a heart attack unless that's caused by a pathogen. It's not going to protect you from nutritional deficiencies. Its sole job is to implement boundaries. It's worried first about who is me and who is not me. Now, who is me? Me began as a single cell, which began to replicate. And every cell in my body right now is a descendant from that first cell. Every cell that is me has the DNA that I inherited from my mother and father. Every cell that is me has a little protein, a chemical flag that it waves up and says, it's me, I'm here, I'm part of the system, I belong. Your immune system knows how to recognize what is me and what is not me. Excuse me while I check my notes. Okay, in addition from recognizing self from not self, it needs to recognize the not self that belongs there. We have a lot of symbiotic bacteria in our systems, bacteria, viruses, and fungi that we would not be able to live without. The gut biome is the best known example, but there's so much more to this symbiotic relationship than just the gut biome. Current estimates are we have like 10 times as many of these symbiotic cells as our own cells, 1 to 2 pounds of them. Your immune system recognizes them too, not as you, but as belonging to you. So you have the good that belongs in the body, and you have the pathogens that are trying to get in, and your immune system's job is first to recognize those pathogens, try to keep them out, recruit help when it's needed, respond to changes in the system, in your body, and to make those pathogens less virulent or if possible to kill it. So how does it do this? Okay, first a word about germs. Bacteria, fungi, and viruses, the collective term is germs. Germ stands for germinator, the beginning, the originator. Bacteria colonized this planet like 3 billion years before we came on the scene. They formed the environment of this planet. The first great extinction was when bacteria manages to produce enough oxygen to wipe out most of what was living here, paving the way for oxygen-using organisms of which we are descended from. We only really hear about the bad germs, the bad viruses, and the bad fungi and molds or whatever. So we think of germs as being bad, and we want to eliminate germs. 99.9% of them is the going rate, as I hear. That's not a good idea. Germs are critical to who we are. They're critical to our survival. The gut bacteria is only the beginning, and your gut bacteria also includes viruses and molds. Your whole biome contains symbiotic organisms of all 3 types that we depend on. Okay, the immune system. It's the most integrated part of the body. It has mobile cells, which most of your system doesn't except for your circulatory system. You have cells that can go from one system of your body to another. Your immune cells are made in your red bone marrow. Your spleen stores immune cells. It also acts as a lymph node, which we'll get to in a bit, by helping to filter everything that's inside of it. Your thymus is where one type of immune cell called a T cell goes to grow up. This is important. Your thymus learns its job. The first thing, the T cells learn their job. The first thing the thymus says is like, are you a killer cell? And if the cell says no, the thymus kills it. Then the thymus says, are you going to attack me? And if the cell says, yeah, the thymus kills it. 5% of the T cells that go to grow up in the thymus are able to come back out and do their job. This is important because this is one of the areas where scientists are looking for the causes of autoimmune diseases. The last thing that you want is your immune system to begin attacking you. Your lymph system is a complete system that's critical to the immune system. We'll go into that at length a little bit later. Your skin and mucous membranes, very important. We'll start with them in a couple of minutes. Your liver clears toxins, dead white cells, dead white blood cells, including all of your immune cells that have made it to the liver and are no longer functional. White blood cells include B cells and T cells. We will talk about them a little bit later. Monocytes and macrophages are the same thing. It depends upon if they're found in the blood or out of the blood, but they're called. We have something called a natural killer T cell, or natural killer cells. That really is what they're called. We'll talk about them in a while. And there are others besides that. We talked about the T cells are made in the bone marrow. They grow up in the thymus. When they graduate from thymus school, they go to live in the lymph and the blood. Okay, there are two parts to the immune system: innate immunity and acquired immunity. The acquired immunity is learned. We'll talk about that last. That's where your antibodies come in. That's where your vaccines come in. Your innate system is the first part of your defense system, and it begins with physical boundaries, your skin and your mucous membranes. The top layer of your skin is made up of cells that fit very tightly together. The top layer is dead. There is a adhesive type of substance that holds them together, and they prevent anything from getting into the skin unless it can manage to somehow get through the cells. The entire surface of your skin is covered with helpful bacteria. It's bacteria that colonizes your skin. Think of it like soil in a garden. You don't have any space left for a pathogenic bacteria to colonize. It's all taken up with the helpful bacteria, which help to keep other bacteria out. Just under the top layer is a layer that contains macrophages and Langerhans cells. We'll talk more about those later. They're interesting. If you disrupt your top layer of helpful bacteria with antibodies, you open yourself up to pathogens. Maintaining that bacteria layer isn't critically important, but with the pandemic, we're being told we have to wash our hands all the time or sanitize all the time. Is this something that we want to do if we need that top layer of bacteria? The same question comes up when an area is sanitized before surgery. Well, use some common sense. The virus is critical right now. That's the worst of the issues that you have to deal with. Yeah, wash your hands. If there's any chance that you've touched something that could be carrying the virus, wash your hands, sanitize. Before surgery, when you're cutting through the skin, you want to sanitize the area. You want to make sure you're not opening up any opportunity for pathogens to get in. The second barrier is the mucous membrane. That's found at every entrance to the body: your eyes, your nose, your mouth, your anus, your vaginal openings. Excuse me if that offends anybody, I don't intend to. It's made up of cells that have cilia and cells that produce mucus. Cilia are like tiny little hairs that come off of the cell and wave back and forth. Their purpose is to sweep everything up and out of the body. The mucus is sticky. It acts like flypaper. It captures and holds on to any invading particles, including virus particles and bacteria, anything that's coming into the body that doesn't belong there through the body openings, like the mouth, the nose, and the eyes. The mucus captures it, and the cilia sweep it out. This is your first layer of protection in addition to the skin. This is the first place where something that you can do can help boost your immune system. Keep the air around you humid. The air humidity should be between 30 and 50%. 45% is ideal. If the air is too dry, then your cilia begins to harden and the mucus dries up. The mucus can't catch the particles, the cilia can't sweep them out. You can't control what's outdoors, but you can control what's inside. So it's something that you want to pay attention to. If you can't humidify or dehumidify your entire house, pay attention to your bedrooms. You want to make sure that your mucous membranes are able to do the job and keep out what they need to keep out. Anything that gets through the skin or the mucous membranes gets into the blood, and the blood is your second layer of defense. And there's a lot going on here. From this point on, we say the system is intelligent, not able to read a good book, do some math problems, be creative, think something through, intelligent, but it needs to be aware of what's going on. It needs to be able to respond to changes in the system. It needs to be able to call for help when it's needed. It requires alertness. It's impacted by the feeling state of the body, and we'll get into that a little bit later too. And it's linked to the nervous system. Now, the blood contains about 20 different proteins that work together. It's called a committee. They make pathogens sticky. By doing that, they allow a certain type of immune cell called a phagocyte to eat the pathogens, and they literally engulf and eat the pathogens. Many bacteria need iron to grow. The blood contains transferrins, which make the iron unavailable. Viruses, unlike bacteria, aren't considered to be alive because they can't reproduce themselves. They invade a cell and then cause the cell's DNA to start replicating more virus cells. The cell dies, breaks open, and you have more virus cells being dumped into the body. Once a virus cell is infected, there's nothing that can help it, but it can release a set of messenger chemicals called interferons. The interferons do two things. They alert the surrounding cells that there is a pathogen in the area to start producing antiviral chemicals to protect themselves with. And they call on, they act as a flare, sending up a signal, asking for help. These activate the natural killer cells. And natural killer cells are interesting. A cell has to maintain integrity. It's surrounded by a cell membrane. If that cell membrane is damaged enough or broken open, the cell dies. Natural killer cells work by literally punching a hole through the cell membrane to kill the infected. They kill the infected virus cells. They can kill infectious bacteria cells, and they can attack tumor cells in the same way. The flare also calls in phagocytes and increases their effectiveness. Okay, the natural killer cells will work against any cell that it comes across that doesn't have a knee flag on it. The tumor cells and infected virus cells no longer have that flag. All right, so the pathogen gets in, it gets past this first barrier, it begins to thrive. Now what happens? Well, if there's damage to the tissue, and this is also true if you have skin wounds that cuts or scrapes or abrasions, inflammation sets in. Inflammation is your body's primary response to wounds. That's why it's a big issue throughout most of our illnesses. When you set off uncontrollable inflammation in the body, it creates a lot of problems. But initially, it's the primary defense mechanism that we have. It prevents the spread of microbes, toxins, or foreign materials to other organs. It increases blood flow to the area. It brings in phagocytes to help dispose of the above. Prepares the site for tissue repair, brings clotting factors in to control bleeding, fibroblasts that aid in cell repair, and nutrients. Infection and inflammation produce fever. Fever, like inflammation, is part of your body's defense mechanism. It's necessary. It's really uncomfortable, And it's one of the first things that we try to get rid of when we're not feeling well. Getting rid of a fever is kind of like fighting a war by sending all of your generals home first. You need what your fever is able to do for you. Most of our body functions work better or best at our normal body temperature, but many of our inflammatory cells work best at higher temperatures. Many of the pathogens that attack us are really happy with our normal body temperature and don't do well in elevated temperatures. So fevers make our internal environment less hospitable to the microbes. They trigger greater immune activity. They increase the effectiveness of interferons. They increase heart rate, bringing more blood to the damaged areas, and it increases repair functions. On the other hand, if the fever gets too high, it can create problems too. At a conservative level, you want to keep the fever for an adult of below 103 degrees and for a child below 101 degrees. The problem with a fever in children, which means you need to watch them very, very carefully, is because their bodies are small enough where fevers can spike quickly. So if you're going to give the fever a chance with a child, keep a very close eye to make sure the fever doesn't go above 101 degrees. Between 101 and 103, depending on the age of the child, you may want to talk to your doctor about at what level you should be concerned given the age of your child. You don't want to eat with a fever. Eating digestive takes energy that your body needs to fight infection. Okay, you have a lymph system. It's the baby sister for your circulatory system. Both are part of your cardiac system. Your lymph system is a really important part of your immune system. Now, your blood leaks out about 20 quarts of fluid through your capillaries every day. This is important because this fluid goes out and bathes the cells around the capillaries to feed them, bring them oxygen, bring them nutrients, and pull back in the carbon dioxide and other waste products. Your capillaries will pull back in about 17 quarts a day, which leaves 3 quarts of leakage that's still out there. Your lymph system begins at your feet, goes in one direction, it moves up till it gets to about here in your neck and dumps everything back into your circulatory system. As it goes, it pulls in all of the excess fluid that your capillaries have leaked out and puts these through filters found in your lymph nodes and your lymph nodules. These filters contain B cells, other macrophages, and phytocytes, which will destroy and eat many of these invaders. It pulls everything in and up and through, filters it out, and puts it back into the circulatory system. It works against gravity. It goes from the feet up to the neck, and it doesn't have a pump. So if you find that you have edema, which is a buildup of fluid around your ankles, there could be a lot of things that can cause that, but one of the primary reasons for that is your lymph system isn't working right. Here's another area where your choices can boost your immune system. Your lymph system needs your body to move. It needs your body to exercise. It depends on your skeletal muscles to help move a lot of the lymph fluid. Now, your circulatory system depends on this too. Your heart is not capable of pumping all of your blood through your body the way it needs to be pumped. The pressure in your arteries is very high. Blood coming out of the heart, as the blood goes back into the heart through your veins, it's much lower, which is why blood is always taken through your veins. If they took it through your arteries, you would have a spurting problem. Your veins, working much harder to get the blood back to your heart, use a lot of valves in the vein, which will allow the blood to go through in one direction and close, preventing the backflow. So your heart doesn't have to work harder moving the blood twice through each meter or millimeter of the vein. Your veins are located in between your skeletal muscles. Every time you move, you are helping to pump the fluid through the veins and back to the heart. You're helping your heart pump through the system. Your lymph systems, your lymph vessels also are between your skeletal muscles. Every time you move, you're helping to pump the lymph back up against gravity, up to where it needs to be into your neck to drain back into your circulatory system. You also have a lot of lymph up in your hands, all around your joints, but in particular in your hands. Doing something like this on a regular basis can help move the lymph through. Do this for several minutes, you can almost feel something happening in your system. Good news is something else that can help move lymph is a warm foot bath. Our society tends to look down on such things because, we're not supposed to pamper ourselves. We're supposed to be, tough and rugged. But a warm foot bath, by increasing the temperature in the area, will help move the fluid. Now, the fluid doesn't move. It's not being filtered. Any pathogens that are in the fluid are able to produce more because it's not being sent through the filters. It stagnates a little bit. It's not being sent back into the circulatory system where it belongs. And the circulatory system continues to leak as it needs to without pulling all the fluid back in. The edema is dangerous. You don't want to let that continue. So walk a little bit. Get some exercise. Move your hands, especially when you're walking. One woman, one herbalist that I've taken some classes with, talks about how she goes for a walk, and she doesn't use the sticks that people, walking sticks that people use, or the skiing sticks as she walks. Instead, she walks around doing this. And people think she's nuts, but she's getting the lymph fluid moving. Or try the foot bath. That works too. And you can put something nice in there, something aromatic that is helpful in its own right. Okay. Do the lymph system. Acquired immunity. If the pathogen gets past all of this, it gets past the barrier, it gets into the blood, it's not being killed by what's in the blood, it's not being destroyed by what's in the lymph system. Now you're getting sick. Now you have acquired immunity coming into play. Acquired immunity is memory. There are two kinds, cell-mediated and antibody-mediated. Cell-mediated immunity utilizes the T cells that we talked about before that are born in the blood, that grow up in the thymus, and then they're released into the lymph and into the blood cells. Now, when I talked about the skin, I said I would get back to the Langerhans cells and the macrophages. We're going to go back to them now. Macrophages, when they leave the blood, or they're just cells that they're in the blood, they're phagocytes. They stimulate B cells, which we'll talk about next. They stimulate T cells. They stimulate the natural killer cells to grow by releasing chemical messages called cytokines. You may have heard about cytokines recently because they're important with COVID-19. Cytokines are a part of your immune system that destroys invading pathogens, but if your body produces too much of them, then they begin to destroy the host cells as well. One of the problems with COVID-19 is what's called a cytokine storm. And that's what tends to be the cause of most of your respiratory deaths. In it trying to attack the virus, your system is attacking its own cells, its own respiratory system, causing flooding in the tissues and making it difficult to breathe. One of the issues to keep in mind when you work with herbs to help boost the immune system is you don't want to risk using herbs because you're not aware of enough of the property of the herbs that can help cause or support a cytokine storm. Okay. Now T cells need to be presented by an antigen. An antigen is either a pathogen or parts of a pathogenic cell or a toxin. They're presented an antigen by something called antigen-producing or antigen-presenting cells. These include B cells, macrophages, and Langerhans cells, the cells that are underneath the skin. Antigen-producing cells ingest the antigen, they process it, they mark it, and they return it to the surface of the cell for the T cells to interact with. This activates the T cell, causing it to produce thousands of copies of itself. These interact with and destroy the same type of antigen that activated the T cell. Natural killer cells are a type of T cell. In antibody-mediated immunity, you have the B cells at work. They stay in the bone marrow to mature, and then they go to the lymph. They're not allowed in the blood. When they encounter a pathogen, because they've been presented one, they transform into a plasma that is customized for the pathogen. The plasma cell makes antibodies to work against the pathogen. Antibodies are proteins that leave the nymph, travel to the blood, and they're shaped to bind to the pathogen to kill it. Literally, they are shaped to meet with the pathogen. Most parts of a cell are a protein, and protein is defined by shape. So by creating an antibody that is of the proper shape to bind to the antigen, you will have 2 or 3 parts of the antibody that will grab hold of it. In some cases, the antibody will grab hold of 2 pathogens and it'll bash them together, like a Three Stooges move. In some cases, it'll hold the pathogen for a phagocyte to engulf and eat the whole thing, or for the natural T cells, natural killer cells, to poke holes in it, depending on what kind of a pathogen you're dealing with. Some of the B cells also become memory cells. These are cells that can make antibodies once the B process is complete. What I just described is a primary response. This is what happens when you first encounter a pathogen. It can take a while. In the meantime, you get sick. You get better when the antibodies have been made and begin to kick in. The memory cells, though, allow for a secondary response. This is a much faster response. The next time you encounter the pathogen, your body is ready for it. The memory cells quickly produce the plasma cells and the antibodies, and begin to deactivate the antigen. You will often experience minor symptoms or no symptoms, and this is thinking behind immunizations. This is where you're injected with either a very weakened live pathogen or a dead one, so that your body begins to ramp up this process through the primary response. And when you encounter the pathogen later on, a virus, because it doesn't work for bacteria, your body is ready for it. The problem with vaccines for the cold and the flu, well, not so much the cold, it changes too rapidly, but for the flu, is that it does change rapidly enough where every year you have to reproduce the new vaccine for that particular strain of the flu. Okay, that wraps up our world-worn tour of the immune system. Hopefully you have a better understanding of how it works and why it works, and why I can't do something I would really love to do, which is to give you an herb or a group of herbs and say, take this every day as a tea or as a pill, and you'll never be sick again. It just isn't possible. But there are a lot of things that you can do to boost and support your immune system. We talked about one already, the humidity, keeping your humidity levels at the right levels. You want to especially maintain those levels in the bedroom. Speaking of the bedroom, sleep is critical. Now, I'm going to be talking about lifestyle choices that I'm already hearing the groans. They're not sexy. They're not interesting. They're not exotic. They're not something that your friends are going to say, oh, look what you're doing, that's wonderful, can I do that too? They're boring, they're tedious, they take work, they take effort, they take discipline, but they're free. You can't run out of them. They're not going to disappear from store shelves. You don't have to worry about not being able to take care of yourself at home. You're not talking about becoming dependent on something that could disappear at some point. Say herbs are at risk and are no longer to be found in the wild and can't be grown. This is the way to take care of yourself, by proper self-care, by helping your body, which is constantly engaged in all these chemical processes to keep everything working the way it's supposed to be working, to keep those chemical processes going the way they should. And in the first place we're going to begin with is sleep. Of the chemical reactions you've been talking about, a lot of them are engaged in maintenance and repair and in healing. They take a lot of energy, they take a lot of resources. Instead of competing with those processes that are going on when we're active, when we're awake, They wait until when we're asleep to do their job. If you don't get enough sleep, you're not going to be able to get the work done that needs to be gotten done. It's kind of, I mean, if you've ever heard of the phrase, you're too tired to fall asleep, there's a reason for that. You don't have the energy available to you to do the things that you need to do. I mean, we almost see sleep as a luxury in this country. The first thing somebody says if you say you don't have enough time to do something, well, suck it up. Get up an hour earlier to get it done. But that's counterproductive. You need those hours of sleep to get done the work that your body needs to be done. It's like I'm asking a manufacturing facility to spend more time on manufacturing. You bring in another shift of employees. The last shift ramps down, the new shift comes in and ramps up, and you're constantly making the products that you need to be making. But that leaves less time for unloading and storing incoming materials, and leaves less time for restocking the bins that are being pulled from on a daily basis. Less time for cleaning and repairing the machines that you use to manufacture the product with. Less time for handling administration functions. Sooner or later, this is going to start to break down. You're not going to be able to keep up your manufacturing pace if you aren't able to maintain the background functions that support it. So you need to get your sleep. Okay, now we're really ready for the groans. Exercise. Your body is meant to move. It depends on it. We evolved with our chemical functions depending upon movement to help them along. We already talked about that with the heart and the lymph system. Okay, this is where I explained it, not before. Okay, end of that page. There are a lot of other aspects to your body that don't directly deal with the immune system, but movement is important. It's people will talk about movement for losing weight. To be honest, at one point I stopped exercising because I wasn't losing the weight that I thought I was supposed to be losing. Next time I go back to exercising, I'm going to do it for every reason but, so I don't get myself upset and frustrated and stop moving. You don't have to go to a gym. You don't have to pay for a gym. You can walk. You can climb up and down stairs if your knees will support it. You can put a little bit more pizzazz and activity into when you're cleaning. Put on some upbeat music and dance while you're vacuuming the house. There's a lot of ways to get your movement in. It's important. It helps to keep everything flowing throughout your system. It's important to almost every one of your systems. Okay, and I know you're expecting this, food. All those chemical reactions that take place in your body, including those that produce immune cells and allow them to carry out their jobs, require raw materials, and your raw materials come from your food. Your food is not where you're getting your energy from. Your food is what you're getting, well, it is, but a better example is your food is where you're getting everything that you need to make you. All the raw materials except for oxygen, and vitamin D that you can make from the sun. You count water in your food. If you're not getting some of the nutrients that you need, your body is not going to be able to do what it needs to do. You may not be making some of the cells that you need to be making. You may be making cells that are weaker and unable to do the job that they're able to do. It could interfere with being able to make some of the messenger molecules that your body needs to keep everything organized and coordinated. Could be interfering with neural function or with respiratory function. You absolutely need to get the raw materials that you need. If you're building a car, for example, do you really want to invest in really wonderful, sporty, flashy plans and use raw materials that won't hold up to the wear and tear of driving your car? Or do you want to get the raw materials that will keep your car functioning with relatively simple maintenance and repair? It's something to consider. Now, plants make hundreds of thousands of chemicals for their own use. We eat plants or mushrooms. Mushrooms aren't plants, but herbalists consider them to be honorary plants. These chemicals become available for our use. Most of these chemicals haven't been identified yet, but they include nutrients and phytochemicals, medicines that the plants make for themselves. These are chemicals that we take in and we modify them and we use them for our own purposes. And don't forget, plants are operating here under the unlimited trust fund policy. As long as they have enough sunlight, they can make all the energy that they need. We operate under the it takes money to make money philosophy. We have to expend energy to make the energy that we use to run all the chemical processes and all of the functions that our bodies need to run. It makes no sense for us to try to take in the basic elements like the plants do and build everything up from scratch. We take what we get from our food and we modify it to meet our needs. This is what food is, and this is where our plants' medicine come from. If we eat meat, we're eating an animal that took in from the plants that they ate, the plant chemicals from those plants, and modified those chemicals for its own use. In some cases, the animals modify the chemicals to be closer to what we need. So when we eat meat, we're eating chemicals that are already closer to our needs. But we're not carnivores, we're omnivores. And in many cases, we're not able to make use of the animal proteins or the animal meat to make everything that we need to make. There are still some things that we need to get from the plants. Many animals, for example, can make their own vitamin B12 from what they're getting from the plants. We have a hard time doing that. Vegetarians have a hard time dealing with getting enough B12 to meet their needs. So we want to get, there are people who do better on meat, people who don't do well on meat, some people who want to eat it, some people who don't. You can live solely on plants. I don't. But you do need to eat enough of them. Now, many of the chemicals that we need, many of the phytochemicals that we need from plants impact the plant in some observable way. It can change the color of the plant, change the taste of the plant, or change the smell of the plant. This is why we're told to eat the rainbow. Each color found in the vegetables and the fruits that we eat is associated with groups of phytochemicals that we need. If you eat through the entire color rainbow, and that includes green, you don't want to bypass green just because plants are normally green. If you eat all the colors in the food rainbow, you're getting a wide swath of phytonutrients and meeting most of or all of your needs. One of the flavors that we tend to avoid is bitters. Bitters are important for many of your chemical processes, including the immune system. Try to get more bitters into your system. And smell, all of your aromatics, including especially ginger, garlic, and onions. But all of your spices, your aromatic spices, those are antivirals, those are antibacterials, those are antimicrobials, and they have other chemicals that help to boost the immune system. So seasoning your food well is helpful. If you do get a respiratory infection, you may want to try a cup of thyme tea or oregano tea with local honey and lemon. That combination is really good for your immune system and for fighting your infections. You may also want to try as a non-herbal way is a steam. I don't know if you remember, but when I was a child, when I had a congestion, my mother would put a pot of water to boil, turn it off. It was cool enough to not burn me. I put my head over the pot, a towel over my head, and breathe in the steam. It's a great way of opening up your air passages. Not so much boosting your immune system, but helping you with once you get sick. Now, you might have noticed I'm talking a lot about food here. All of your plant and mushroom foods contain medicinal phytochemicals as well as phytonutrients, some more than others. Every time you eat a plant, you're getting plant medicine. So if you're interested in moving more towards herbal learning, understand the herbal properties of the foods you eat and learn how to use them to meet your needs. You don't have to necessarily go for something like ashwagandha or cordyceps, or cordyceps, or eleuthero. I mean, these are herbs that you may or may not have heard of. They don't come from around here. And you don't need to necessarily to go to that extreme. Learn how to use the herbs that you're already using, which is your foods, and some of the herbs that grow around the area. Okay, on the other hand, sugar suppresses your immune system. Sorry. Alcohol suppresses your immune system. Sorry. Sluggish lymph flow is a problem. We talked about that with edema. That can be caused by sugar, alcohol. It's also caused by drunk beverages. It's caused by fighting an infection. In this case, it makes sense because if you're fighting an infection and you slow down your lymph movement, your lymph is the liquid within the lymph system. It's a clear liquid that's being pulled up from the tissues. The lymph spends more time going through the filters, being able to pull out more of the pathogens and giving the filters, the phagocytes in the filters, more time to engulf and destroy the pathogens. Decreased water intake will slow your lymph system. Inactivity, which we talked about, and muscle tension. So other ways of improving your lymph flow will be to focus on your muscles, mine are always in here, that tense up, try to relax them, and to make sure you get enough water intake, which is another thing that's important for so many other different reasons. Processed foods are a problem. They often contain chemicals like preservatives, food enhancers, artificial flavors, etc., that can interfere with the chemical reactions that take place. Every time you hear of an artificial ingredient that does this, whatever this will be, that hurts you in this way, if you follow that through enough, you find where ultimately this set of chemical reactions is interfered with, which means it can't produce this, which means it can't do that, which means it interferes and causes this problem. It all goes back to the chemical reactions. Anytime you interfere with those chemical reactions, you're creating a problem. Your body isn't able to do the work that it needs to do. Environmental pollutants do the same thing. They suppress the immune system directly, and they also interfere with a lot of other systems by altering the chemical reactions. In terms of the immune system, the chemical reactions that they alter result in a change in the shape of the receptors. Remember I said the receptors are shaped very specifically because of the reactions of the T cells and the B cells to grab a hold of the antigen, the pathogen. If the pathogen is round, the receptors are round and can grab hold of it. If it's got this jagged edge, the receptor has the same negative image of that jagged edge to grab a hold of it and hold on to it. If the shape of the receptors is changed, it can't hold on to the pathogen effectively and it can't neutralize it effectively. Okay, something else that won't surprise you, stress. Stress is a huge problem. And we're constantly being told to reduce our stress levels. Well, that's fine. I mean, I can tell you need to get more sleep, and there are herbs that can help you do that. I can tell you that you need to eat the rainbow. I can tell you to exercise and move. I can tell you to reduce your stress levels. How are you going to do that? It's not so easy. Now, we're exposed to many stressors daily. This is why it's such a huge problem. Biological exposures to viruses, molds, bacteria, parasites, chemicals, toxins, commercial chemicals, insecticides, if you smoke, heavy metals, for example. Environmental, extreme heat, extreme cold are stressors. Noise is a stressor. Allergens, radiation, too much sunlight is a stressor. That one doesn't make me happy. I love the sun. Nutritional, food allergies, highly processed foods, nutritional deficiencies, alcohol, drugs. Physical, too much strenuous activity. Remember I said if you're going to do something to benefit your body, understand what you're doing. If you exercise overly much, you can stress your body's systems and you can cause yourself injury. Doesn't mean you don't exercise, you just know what you're doing. Sleep deprivation, injury, illness, pregnancy. You have psychological stressors, mental illness, mental trauma, grief, overwhelming responsibility, fear, and happy stressors, weddings, birthdays, parties coming up that you're planning for that you're stressing over. Holidays that are coming up. You might be very happy to move or to start a new job. It's still a stressor. Spiritual, crisis of values, questioning your beliefs, loss of meaning in life, feeling isolated, lack of support system. Noise produces lymphocyte dysfunction and reduces the rate of replication. If you feel that you're being restrained, or if you are physically being restrained, it decreases white blood cells' ability to ingest bacteria. Physical restraint also decreases their ability to fight tumor cells. Now, mentioned a lot of stressors, mentioned a lot of things that impact us negatively. We don't yet fully understand what those stressors are doing and how they're operating. Different classes of stressors will impact our bodies in different ways, and we don't fully yet understand how all of those things work. But they affect every organ of the body, including the immune system. We'll talk more about stressors when we talk about attitude, which we're going to next. And then we'll talk about them again when we talk about the herbs, in particular a class of herbs called adaptogens. Okay, attitude. It might sound out there to a lot of people. You know, in our society, we don't really think highly of self-care. You're pampering yourself if you take a bath. You're being, I don't know what you're being. You're pampering yourself too much if you get enough sleep. We don't really respect that we need to sometimes take care of ourselves. So it's not surprising that attitude changes are often looked down on. But all of your thinking is done in your brain. All of your beliefs, attitudes, fears, way of approaching problems, your emotions, your reactions to events are all in your brain and your nervous system. And your brain and your nervous system are an integrated part of your body. Your immune system constantly communicates with your brain through messenger chemicals it releases. If you're sick with infection, these messenger chemicals cause sleepiness and mild depression and lethargy. For good reason, so much energy is needed to fight the infection. Going to work or to school or out for a night's entertainment isn't the best of ideas here. You need to rest. More importantly, you need to sleep. Now, I love to read. And if I get sick, I tend to think, great, I'm stuck in bed. I can get a lot of reading time in. And I spend most of the day napping and barely pick up the book. And I'm always kind of resentful of that. But that's how it goes. Anger, your brain also produces chemical messengers that go back to the immune system and can affect many aspects of it, including suppress it. Anger decreases some antibody function for up to 6 hours. I'm not talking about justified anger. I'm talking about the kind of anger where once it's over, the situation is over, you're rehashing it over and over again. You're thinking about it over and over again. You're constantly getting yourself re-upset by thinking about what somebody has said or what somebody has done. That will decrease your immune system for up to 6 hours. For breast cancer survivors, the ability to express your anger, not rehash it over and over, but to express it, a fighting spirit, and a nutritional or a nurturing social relationship is a better indicator of recovery than the stage of the cancer. And it's your immune system that's helping to protect you against a recurrence. Now, my aunt, may she rest in peace, used to call a bad attitude stinking thinking. And that's how I like to think of it. There are many ways to try to improve your attitude or your mood or your emotions. And again, society tends to look down on some of them, but again, they remain free. They're always available. You can do them at home. There's no reason not to try them. Here's a simple one. Spread your arms out wide, lean back, and take deep breaths from your diaphragm or your belly, from deep in your respiratory system. You do that for a few breaths and you can feel a change coming over your body. It's particularly effective with anxiety and immediate stress, but doing it several times throughout the day will help to alleviate stress, and it's even been shown to reduce high blood pressure if you do it for 6 weeks or more. Blood pressure Doesn't help your immune system. There are whole schools of breathing techniques to help modulate what's going on in your system. You only need to pick a few to help you as needed. Meditation can be a game changer for some people. It's helpful for most people. I wouldn't make the assumption it's not helpful for you. There's no reason not to give it an honest try. Focusing on gratitude makes a difference. I'm sure you've heard this before. Forget all the reasons why. Forget everything you've heard as to why. You could agree with it, you could disagree with it, you could not understand. Forget all of that. It's been shown to work. We don't understand why. Try it. Pamper yourself. Take a warm bath. Yeah, it's nice, it's relaxing, relieves muscle tension. It also produces physiological changes in the body that mediate stress and boost the immune system. Sit in the sun for a while. It's after March. Come April, the sun begins to get strong enough where you can start making your own vitamin D. Vitamin D is important for the immune system. It's also been shown to be helpful against the COVID-19 virus. Unfortunately, the weather that we've been having has not been helpful in sitting in the sun. The light and the warmth are also helpful in relieving stress. Nurturing social relationships are important. These days, we have technology that can help us with that. You can have holidays, you can have birthdays, you can have visits with people that you know through technology, as we're doing now. We didn't have that many years ago. Even past our current shutdown, you can meet with people that are dear to you that live too far away to visit. Okay, herbs. Now we get to the herbs. Herbs can be a great help. They're not what I would suggest as a first go-to. If you're not taking care of your body, if you're not choosing the lifestyle choices that are going to help your body do what it needs to do, herbs aren't going to be able to compensate for that. It's kind of like having triple bypass surgery and deciding now I can go back and eat all of the things that put me in the state where I needed the surgery in the first place. But taking care of yourself and doing the things that you need to do, adding herbs into the situation can be very, very helpful. One of the things to keep in mind about herbs is you need to understand how to use them safely and effectively. You need to know which herbs are good for you and which herbs to avoid. Herbs that are good for somebody else may not be good for you. You may have an herb-drug interaction. You may have an allergy. You may have a body type that just doesn't work well with that herb. That comes into a concept of energetics, which is important to understand with herbs, but it's beyond the scope of this course. You might be able to get your herbs from gardening, from wild crafting. If you may have to go to a commercial source, you want to go to a trusted commercial source. I don't really want to bash Amazon, but please don't buy your herbs from them or from supplement stores. Find a trusted commercial supplier. If you don't know who they are, send me an email. I can give you a list. You want to know that you're getting the correct herb. You want to know that it hasn't been adulterated. You want to know that it's fresh, hasn't been sitting on a shelf for a long period of time. You should know something about the proper dosage. There are a lot of herbs, especially your food type herbs, where it really doesn't matter. It's really, 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 really hard to get too much peppermint. I'm not sure you can get too much peppermint. Okay, adaptogens. Adaptogens are herbs that specifically mediate the stress response. And we talked about stress as being a huge problem with the immune system. They are a class of herbs that are generally safe. They help the body adapt to stress. They support normal metabolic functions. They help to restore balance in various organs and systems. They increase the body's resistance to physical, biological, emotional, and environmental stressors. And they provide a defense response to acute or chronic stress. Not all adaptogens work the same. Some reduce adrenal fatigue. Some reduce anxiety and depression. Others help with brain function. Specific adaptogens that very specifically target and benefit the immune system include American ginseng, ashwagandha, Asian ginseng, astragalus, eleuthero, holy basil, licorice, reishi mushrooms, schisandra, and shatavari. Some of these you may never have heard of, and some of these you may have. These are becoming a little bit more common in popular culture. If you're interested in an adaptogen to help with your stress response, I recommend beginning with astragalus. Astragalus looks kind of like a tongue depressor. It's a root that's cut in slices. It's related to asparagus. It comes from Asia. It's easy to use. Anytime you're cooking something, if you're making rice, you're making soup, you're doing a crock pot, you're making a stew, throw a couple tongues of astragalus in there. You can make it as a tea. You would make it as a decoction, which means you boil the water, add the astragalus, simmer it for 15, 20 minutes, and then drink the result. It has a very mild, nutty, slightly sweet taste. Doesn't change the taste of any of your food. If you're opening up a can and heating it up, you don't use the astragalus simply because you're not keeping it in the hot mixture long enough. But if you're cooking something from scratch and you're boiling something for at least 15, 20 minutes, preferably more, astragalus added into every time you're doing that is a great way of boosting and maintaining that boost to your immune system. It helps with stress, and it helps the immune system directly. Another class of herbs, they're deep nourishers. They work in the bone marrow to help make the needed immune system. They're long term. You want to start taking them 90 days before the cold and flu season starts. If you take them all the time, that's fine too. These are typically the medicinal mushrooms, reishi, shiitake, and turkey tails. If you are into wild crafting, none of these mushrooms have poisonous lookalikes. And the problem with mushroom hunting is there are mushrooms that are safe that look almost identical to mushrooms that are not safe. There's a problem with Asian immigrants right now because there's a mushroom that grows in Asia that is a food source that is completely perfectly safe. And there are no dangerous lookalikes in Asia. Once they come to this country and they begin wild crafting their own mushrooms, we do have a dangerous lookalike here. I mean, it will kill you without no time at all. Not realizing that many Asians have died by wild crafting their mushrooms. The mushrooms that I mentioned, the reishi, the turkey tail, and the shiitake, have no dangerous lookalikes. Not in this country, not in any country. So if you learn how to recognize them and you wild craft them, you're safe. Or you can buy them from a reputable source, and again, if you email me, I can give you several. Astragalus is also a deep nourisher, which is one other reason why I recommend it as a starter if this is where you want to go. Another class of herbs strengthens the immune system. Elderberry grows locally around here, is one of these. It prevents the virus from getting into the cells, and then it prevents the virus from replicating within the cells. If you wild harvest your own elderberry, make sure you know how to recognize it. Make sure you're harvesting the right herb, and you don't use it raw. It has to be cooked. Bone set is another herb that grows nearby. It isn't harvestable until August, so it's not going to help you necessarily for that season, August, September, October. But by the time it's really doing its job, it's not going to, you pass the season. You use the flowering tops. It is unfortunately really bitter, but we're trying to get more bitters into our system. To stimulate a fever, which you want to do to help get the virus out, you want to use warming herbs like ginger, cayenne, and yarrow. There are herbs called lymph movers. Again, you want to keep your lymph system moving. The most gentle of these is called cleavers. I believe they're an early spring herb. I believe they're still out there. You can wild craft them yourself. They grow all over the place. Email me and I'll show you how to identify them. Take them into a tea, put them into your salad, put them into your food. They're the most gentle of the lymph movers, and they're effective. Echinacea is another one, Echinacea purpurea. There are many different varieties of echinacea. And mullein, which also grows around here. And then there are symptom herbs. Herbs like peppermint and catnip and wild cherry bark that are to deal specifically with the symptoms of an illness once you get it, not necessarily with your immune system. Okay, I hope that was helpful. Are there any questions?
Hi guys. Hi guys. This is Tasha. I just wanted to know, I missed the part where she said the lymph movers. What exactly are the herbs that we use for those?
Cleavers,
Okay, one second. I'm cleavers. Okay.
Echinacea purpurea, a type of echinacea,
Okay.
and mullein.
How do you spell that? Mullet.
Mullein. I'm sure you've seen it. It grows with a lot of big furry leaves around the base of the plant, the basal leaves, and then it grows a huge stalk. You may have heard it called candleflower because the people have actually burned the stalks as candles.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. This is awesome. I enjoyed every minute of it. Thank you.
Thank you. I try not to get too deep into the science, but I feel that if you understand how something works and why, then things begin to make more sense to you. You've probably heard of interferon, you've probably heard of T cells, you've probably heard of the cytokine storm, but without any kind of a context, it's just a word.
Yep, you're so right. That makes a lot of sense because it's almost like you described it like how you would read a book. Like you start in the beginning and then you get to the end. So I really, that helps a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thanks, Crystal.
You're welcome, Natasha. Someone typed in a question in the chat box asking if you can repeat the herbs that are adaptogens.
Yes, there are many adaptogens beyond the ones that I mentioned that are good for the immune system, but most of them you've probably never heard of, and many of them are hard to find. The adaptogens that you will probably have a pretty good chance of getting that are helpful specifically to boost the immune system are American ginseng, ashwagandha, Asian ginseng, astragalus, eleuthero, which is sometimes called Siberian ginseng, but we're trying to discourage that because it isn't in the ginseng family, holy basil, licorice, not Twizzlers, licorice coming from the root of the licorice plant, reishi, mushroom, schisandra, and shatavari. Ashwagandha, schisandra, shatavari, and holy basil come from India. Asian ginseng, astragalus come from Asia. Licorice grows around here. Eleuthero comes from Siberia. That, by the way, is the plant that first had research done on it in Russia that tuned us into this whole new class of herbs called adaptogens. Is that helpful?
Thank you.
Any other questions?
For those who have called in and can't read the chat box, Diane shared her email address. It is greenfireherbs. So green like the color, F-I-R-E, herbs, H-E-R-B-S @gmail.com.
I'll be happy to answer your questions and supply you with any materials or references you would like.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I had trouble logging in. So I missed a half hour.
It's
I have it
recorded.
So it'll be on the library's YouTube page in a few days.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I guess I could say that you went into a lot of the biology of the body. Would that be a correct way to describe it?
Yes. I talked
You
at
were
first about
describing.
and why
Okay.
they aren't the first go-to. And then I talked about how the immune system works, so you have a better understanding of what's going on in your body. And if you come across some new ways of dealing with the immune system, it helps to understand what those things are trying to do. And it helps to weed out something that doesn't make sense to you. One thing to keep in mind when you're evaluating different things is in vitro versus in vivo. How something operates in a petri dish when it's coming into direct contact with an herb or a medicine or whatever can be very different from how it operates in the body, where it needs to go through all kinds of hurdles before it actually contacts the pathogen. So just because something works in a petri dish, that's a real good reason to study it further. It's not a real good reason to start taking it and expecting it to make any difference. And you don't know at that point what kind of negative consequences there may be for it. If somebody says this is a super herb and it's going to take care of all your immune, ask them how, ask them why. And if what they're telling you doesn't make sense within the context of the chemistry and the biology, you know not to trust it. There are so many people out there today that are trying to make money with miracle cures. And if it's too good to be true, the chances are it probably is. But you want to understand enough to be able to evaluate it.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate your approach. It just takes me a little while to process everything, so I will need to watch it again and maybe even do a little light reading. I don't have too much of an appetite for all the signs, but I do want to know about what you said about how the body functions. I do want to understand that. I've always wanted to understand all that.
Well, if it's
I
our
just
body,
need it in a way where it's kind of easier to understand.
well, it's our body. It has to do with our health and our well-being. Why not understand what's going on? Why not be able to evaluate, what is best for us? And what's best for you, what's best for me may be different. But if you understand what's going on inside the body and you pay attention to how you're feeling, don't do things that, especially with herbs, if you don't feel well taking it, don't take it. Pay attention to how you're feeling and figure out for yourself what it is that you need to do. If you go out to the gym and you're doing a lot of vigorous exercise and you love that, go for it. If you don't, walk around the block, or in these days, walk around the house.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
No. Last call. Okay, well, thank you so much, Diane. I have your email address up there. Thank you for everyone participating. Look out for more virtual programs that we're having this Wednesday. We're doing a vegan instant pot meals program, which should be fun. And if you have any questions, just let us know. Library's still here for you. Thank you so much for coming, everybody. Thank you,
Thank you all
Diane.
for coming and listening to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, too.
You're welcome.
Stay well.
Yes, everybody stay well.
You too,
Love
and
you to
all
try.
of you.
Bye.
Bye.